This video is super important. I mean, seriously, it's a must watch. If you're a parent or carer of an autistic kid, if you're a partner of an autistic adult, or if you're an autistic person, I'm going to talk about something that I think is one of the greatest dangers facing autistic people. On this video, I'm going to talk you through one of the most dangerous, damaging things an autistic person can experience, and that is autistic mate crime. Yeah, that's right. Autistic mate crime. What is it? How is it damaging? How is it dangerous? Well, we'll find out. Let's go. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, and since my diagnosis later in life, I've devoted my time to advocating for the autistic community, and I do that through my podcasts, blogs, and these YouTube videos. My goal is to raise the level of understanding, appreciation, and acceptance of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in being a part of, I'd be delighted if you would consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the notifications bell, like the videos, rate them, comment, share. It'll help us reach even more people, and hopefully we can use that to raise the level of understanding, appreciation and acceptance of the autistic community. You can follow the Orion Kelly page on Facebook. You'll find me on Instagram, Twitter, and for my shorts, check them out on TikTok. Socials, say hey, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Got my website as well. Go to orionkelly.com.au. On the website, really, it's everything you need to know. Okay, so let's explore the topic of autistic mate crime. And we'll start off with, what is autistic mate crime? Let me read from my prepared notes. Professional. Well, in simple terms, autistic mate crime is when someone befriends, becomes a friend or acquaintance with an autistic person, and then purposely takes advantage of them or bullies them in some way. Let's say you have an autistic child. It's when another child, a neurotypical child, a non-autistic child, befriends or becomes friends with your autistic child, but not in a genuine way, not to really be friends, but because there's something about your autistic child that they can exploit. Now, although there's no exhaustive list of examples of autistic mate crime, we can definitely go through a few. You might have an adult autistic person in your life, an acquaintance of theirs, purposely taking advantage of them to commit a crime, to engage in risky behavior, to engage in drug use or use of some substance. Another example of an autistic mate crime could be a neurotypical person taking advantage of an autistic person to perform sexual behaviors. An autistic person who is forced, with not really knowing it, to lend money or spend money, sometimes lots of money, on their friend, right? So that the idea that in an autistic mate crime that someone would befriend, one would become friends with an autistic person, really with the intent to take advantage of them, and that may simply be by getting them to give them money. Like, well, I'm your friend, can you lend me some money? I'm your friend. That's what friends do. And it doesn't have to just be money. Another example of this very situation with regards to a friend saying, hey, lend me money, give me some money. We're friends, right? And the autistic person going, no worries, here's some money. Could be giving away possessions, things. Now, I'm talking things that the autistic person does not want to give away or would never have thought of giving away, but they're being taken advantage of through autistic mate crime to the point where they've actually given away possessions, things that they love, that are important to them, to their friend. A relatively common example of autistic mate crime is when a neurotypical person will use that autistic person's home, their residence, to either crash, to live, or to have parties, have situations in their house that they really don't want to include the autistic person, but it's a means to an end. Autistic people can fall into the trap of being the taxi for all their friends, their so-called friends. These autistic mate crimes can manifest in people befriending autistic people with the purpose intent of taking advantage of them in ways like money and using their house and getting them to drive them everywhere. And at its most basic and generalized form, which really affects all autistic people in this instance, an example of autistic mate crime, is simply feeling pressured in any way. Now, I think we all agree if you have a real true friend, you're never going to feel pressured, and real true friends are never going to ask you for something and demand it or expect something of you, and they will not be pressuring you. That's not what friends do. You learn that as you go. But for autistic people, it's something they experience when neurotypical people can befriend them, become their friend, to take advantage of them and apply pressure on them to get the things that they need. So we've defined what autistic mate crime is, and we've talked a bit about how it can look, how it can manifest. Well, now I guess we should discuss why is it that autistic people seem especially prone to being taken advantage of in this type of friendship context. Now, there's been studies done all over the world. Studies can be taken with a grain of salt. One thing that I think is really quite interesting in almost all the studies done of younger autistic people, so we're talking the adolescent range, the young adult teenage range, that kind of 16 to 25 range, around about 100% of everyone who was surveyed, all those autistic people reported they didn't in fact really know the difference between a real friend and a bully or someone trying to take advantage of them. In other words, it's not uncommon for autistic people, certainly early in life, primary school, high school, uni, you do learn as you go, but it's not uncommon for that younger demographic of autistic people to not actually have the ability to judge the difference between someone who is a friend and just take them at their word and someone who is a bully, someone who is actually just taking advantage of them. Now, from the point of view of me, an autistic person who's also an autistic dad, I've got an autistic son, I can look at it on both sides here. As a kid, I can say absolutely, a lot of my childhood experiences weren't great with my friends. I thought they were my friends, but I never seemed to get treated very nicely by them. And when you're a kid and you're autistic, even if it's undiagnosed, you just want to be accepted and feel part of something. You just want friends. It's a lonely, lonely life. So you tend to put up with a lot of crap and you don't even see it as bad. So it's important to understand that, but it's also, and look out for that if you have a child who's autistic, but it's also important to understand as a dad, I can look at my son and think, oh my goodness, he might think he knows, he has that kind of capacity or he knows that this person's his friend, but I can tell you just from the stories he's telling and the experiences, that kid is not my son's friend. That kid who my son thinks is a close friend is absolutely not a friend. He's stealing all his cards and taking his stuff and making him do stupid things on the bus. And it's like he's a circus animal for him. He's an attraction, an entertainment. Man, I just can't believe how he can't see this. There's two sides to this. I can see now that it's really hard to go past the fact, no, I don't care what you think or you're saying. That's not true. They're my friend. They're my friend. And what makes autistic mate crime so damaging and so dangerous is when autistic people are at their most vulnerable is also in the time frame where potentially they're at their most social or they're interested in other people or social situations to one form or another more than probably any other phase in their life. Now, when you put those two forces together, it can't be a good result. You're at your most vulnerable. In other words, much harder to understand the intentions, the real intentions of people. Are they a genuine friend or are they trying to take advantage of me? Or is it just more important to have friends because I put such a high importance on this social aspect of my life at that point in my life? The two forces, they can't really exist. It's like, well, if it's important socially to be accepted, then I probably shouldn't worry about trying to judge intentions because then I won't have friends. But if I have friends, they can take advantage of me. But if I try to see that, I'll lose them. And this is where it becomes painful, damaging, and long-lasting, and can really affect relationships for the rest of that autistic person's life. I want to break down and explore some of the major factors that contribute to autistic people being more prone to this type of mate crime than, say, neurotypical peers. Autistic people inherently find it hard to meet people, to make friends, to keep friends. This is a lifelong thing. This is something that's been experienced since the early days of childhood. But it's important to understand, even though it might not be visible externally, friendship can be really important to autistic people. But given friends are so hard to find and keep, autistic people can be strongly motivated to keep the friends they've found. It doesn't matter if someone else thinks they're treating us badly. We found a friend. They're still our friend. I'm keeping them. And underlying all that is the idea that autistic people who find it hard to make friends, to keep friends, and that's the same with partners and relationships, feel, for the most part, throughout their life, lonely, alone, isolated. Okay, so if there's people out there who can take advantage of you, people who are genuinely looking to take advantage of someone for their own gain, well, doesn't that make it easier for them? Executive function difficulties, another component of being autistic that can contribute to a higher probability of autistic mate crime. The reality that some autistic people can find it hard to articulate and express or even handle and deal with their own emotions and the emotions of others, well, that opens it up. If maybe you are more intuitive or spontaneous in those types of things, or you don't think things through, or you find things hard to articulate, it's potentially easier to get an autistic person to do certain things that other people would think about first or not want to do. Not to mention the difficulty we have in reading people. If we can't read people, how do we know that their intentions aren't pure? They're not real friends. Or how do we know that they aren't actually trying to get us to do something for their own personal gain as opposed to friendship? We've got a strong sense of wanting to make friends, keep friends, a strong fear of rejection or a fear of never being accepted or included. And then you lump in other things, like we talked about with the executive function stuff and the time management and those types of things. You can get someone to do a lot more things if they never really have any idea of time, right? Time and space. And then other things, comorbidities, which could be anxiety. It could be all sorts of other things that autistic people are challenged by. You lump those all together, and clearly the chances of an autistic person being taken advantage of become astronomical, become highly likely. Genetics and neurology can also play a part in autistic people being more prone to this type of mate crime than neurotypical peers. I'm obviously not a doctor or a scientist or a professional in any medical or healthcare avenue. I'm just an autistic dude with autistic lived experiences, just sharing you some of the stuff that I've heard. This is a chat, a conversation. I have heard though that for some autistic people, there's a particular gene, and the difference in this particular gene is it seems in some autistic people to make them more trusting in others. And for some, it even creates a diminished understanding of long-term consequences. So look, again, I'm not a scientist, but there are some genetic and neurological differences in autistic people that can further heighten the propensity for mate crime. Think about it from this angle. When a friend asks you to do something, well, you're going to feel good, right? Because you want it, you're needed. Makes you feel useful, makes you feel good. Gets those neuropeptides in the brain going. Another way of looking at it through this genetic neurological lens is that we can trade off long-term consequences for the short-term benefits of these particular actions for friends. And with all that in mind, not only the factors that can contribute to autistic people being at an increased risk of experiencing mate crime than, say, neurotypical peers, and some of those examples we talked about, you have to think of the end result here. Once discovered, once pointed out, once clear to the autistic person in your life, they're going to feel pretty bad. They're going to feel betrayed. They might also feel quite stupid. They might also feel ashamed of themselves. Either way, they've lost all trust in pretty much most people. Now, this is an issue. It's good that they don't trust people who treat them badly, but it may in fact impair their ability to trust those they actually want to trust, whether it's now or down the track. So there's long-term issues here, long-term consequences. And potentially worse still is after going through these types of experiences, it's a very black and white response, but you think, okay, so friends aren't for me. I'll just withdraw from society. Might sound bizarre to you. To me, it's a normal response. I might have a conversation with my wife and she might not understand what I'm saying, or I might not get what she's saying. And my response to that is, okay, let's just not talk. Now, that doesn't make any sense. She's my wife. And it's not about her, it's about me thinking, you know what, I'm not good at this, I'm just not going to do it. So you pull away, you withdraw from friendships and society and the community. Now, what effect do you think that's going to have on an autistic person, on an autistic kid? It's not good. It's very, very bad. All right, so how do you spot an autistic mate crime and what should you do? It's really important as parents and carers of autistic kids, partners of autistic people, that you look out for changes in their potentially friends, their group of friends, or their activities. There may be an unexpected or abrupt change or preference towards unhealthy or risky behaviours. If you know that the autistic person in your life has money, they might have pocket money or they may just be an adult with money, and it seems like they may be paying for more and more expenses or spending more and more money, but it's not really obvious where that money is going to, that could be a sign of autistic mate crime. Like I said, when I spoke about my son, I can kind of point out to my wife or even to my son, look, I really don't think that dude's your friend, mate. It doesn't sound like the stories you're telling me, that's not what friends do. Like, friends don't do that. They don't tease you or take advantage of you or make you do things you don't want to do. That's not a friend. You point that out, he becomes very defensive. So this defensiveness to the friends that you may think are in fact not genuine friends and are just taking advantage of the autistic person in your life, this defensiveness towards those friends when that is brought up is another really good factor in identifying the potential of autistic mate crime. So if you do spot autistic mate crime occurring, and it could be to yourself as an autistic person, or it could be to the autistic person in your life, number one, it is absolutely 100% important to understand that that is not acceptable. That is not okay. And it is absolutely your right to call that out and to bring it to an end immediately. Some tips that I would give to autistic people or to people conveying it to autistic people is it's not okay to feel pressured. You should not be feeling pressured from friends. It doesn't matter what the pressure is. It could be around risky activity or substances or sexual behavior, or it could be just silly, stupid things in the schoolyard. I don't care what it is. You should never feel pressured by friends. My advice, for starters, is to tell those friends that you're feeling really pressured, that you don't like being pressured by a friend, and then seeing how they react. Now, of course, if it's a genuine apologetic response, they may well be a friend. For the most part, though, it probably won't be like that, and therefore it's an unfortunate but obvious sign that this isn't actually a true friend. Number one, you must tell these people that you will not accept that type of behavior, and you must be able to convey that to them. Now, as an autistic person, this can be virtually impossible. And we've talked about this in thousands of videos. So as parents, carers, and partners, it's important for you to help enable or to bridge that gap in communicating to people that this is not acceptable. Make sure the autistic person in your life knows, 100% knows, that they do not owe anybody anything. They do not have to do anything they are not comfortable doing. They do not have to do anything they feel pressured to do. If the only reason why they're doing that is because their friend is asking them to, well, then you have to ask the question, do you really think a friend would put you in that position? Living in a world that doesn't seem to really ever truly accept you as an autistic person can make it hard to just stop hanging out with people that you see as friends. It can make it really hard to just walk away from friendships when it's so hard to meet people, let alone maintain friendships. But look, frankly, in this instance, you have to understand that it's okay to walk away from these types of harmful relationships. They're not real friendships. Again, the reason why this is such an important video is because this isn't always a possibility for an autistic person. What do you mean? Stop hanging out with them. It's my friend. And that's why it's so important for partners, parents, and carers to be there, to look out for their autistic person and to advocate for them when need be. Autistic people can be, some, not all, quite impulsive. For adults, for example, I don't think you should be rushing into big purchases, business decisions, any kind of agreements, contracts. Don't ever rush into those. And, if you're younger, if you're in uni, high school, adolescent, 20-something, whatever, you don't need to rush into relationships, or rush into any kind of activity, shenanigans, one-night stands, these types of things. It's hard to not rush into a one-night stand though, isn't it? Because then there'll be a second or a third. It doesn't. Anyway, whatever. In the end, given our own personal challenges with social communication, the body language and the behavioral skills as autistic people, I think it's just really important that the people in our lives, partners, friends, family, parents, carers, just take the time, find the courage and advocate for the autistic person in their life to make sure that they're protected from this type of legitimate crime, autistic mate crime, being taken advantage of simply because you can be taken advantage of. With an autistic person thinking all they're doing is hanging out with a friend. Do not discount the horrible, disproportionate numbers that young autistic people can fall into with regards to coming in contact with a criminal justice system. So it comes down to the people in our lives, taking it day by day to improve the lives of the autistic people in their lives. Whether you're the parent or carer of an autistic child, autistic teenager, adolescent, young adult, whether you're the partner of an autistic person or whether you're autistic, I think this is one of those videos that I really hope resonated with you and I really hope got through. Until the next video, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, share the videos, and thank you once again for all your support. We'll talk soon.